The laughter hit him before the challenge even began. It rolled across the open training ground in sharp waves, bouncing off the steel barriers and echoing under the bright midday sky. Men built like walls stood in clusters, stretching, flexing, sizing each other up. And in the middle of them, Elias Varon looked like he didn't belong. His shirt was clean but worn at the collar, sleeves rolled neatly over forearms that carried quiet strength instead of showy bulk. His boots were scuffed, not from training arenas, but from years of walking uneven sidewalks and chasing after a little girl who never slowed down. A few of the candidates exchanged glances, smirking as they took him in, the single dad with tired eyes and no flashy credentials. Someone muttered something under their breath, and the group burst into low chuckles. Elias heard it. He heard all of it. But he didn't react. He simply stood there, shoulders relaxed, gaze steady, as if the noise around him didn't matter. Because it didn't. What mattered was the small pink hair tie wrapped around his wrist. What mattered was the reason he was here. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Echoes the Stories. Because stories like this remind us that strength doesn't always look the way we expect. The tryout was for one position, chief bodyguard to one of the most powerful CEOs in the city. It wasn't just about strength. It was about instincts, discipline, control. But to the crowd gathered there, it looked like a competition of brute force. And Elias, at first glance, didn't seem like he stood a chance. The coordinator barked instructions, organizing candidates into rounds. Names were called. Men stepped forward. Fists flew, bodies collided, and one by one, the strongest remained standing. The sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the concrete, and sweat began to glisten on every face. Elias waited. And as he waited, his mind drifted, not to the fight ahead, but to a small kitchen bathed in morning light. A little girl sitting on a chair too big for her, swinging her legs as she tried to braid her own hair. Her name was Mira. 7 years old. Bright-eyed. Stubborn. Everything in his world. He remembered how she had looked at him that morning, her voice soft but certain, telling him he would win. Not because he was the strongest, but because he never gave up. He had smiled then, hiding the doubt that lived quietly inside him. Because the truth was, Elias hadn't always been here. Once, he had a different life. A uniform. A purpose that stretched beyond survival. But life had a way of shifting without warning. One accident. One loss. One moment that broke everything apart. And suddenly, he wasn't the man people admired anymore. He was just a father trying to hold things together. The job he was applying for wasn't about pride. It was about stability. School fees. Rent. A future for Mira that didn't depend on luck. His name was finally called. A few heads turned again, some with curiosity, most with amusement. His opponent stepped forward, a towering man known among the group as the strongest contender. Broad shoulders, thick arms, confidence radiating from every step. The kind of man who expected to win before the fight even started. More laughter followed. Elias stepped into the ring. The ground felt steady beneath his feet. The noise faded into the background. For a brief moment, everything slowed. He could hear his own breathing. Calm. Even. The signal was given. The larger man moved first, fast and aggressive, swinging with force meant to end things quickly. The crowd leaned in, expecting the inevitable. But Elias didn't panic. He shifted. It was subtle. Almost invisible. A slight movement, a change in angle, a redirection of energy. The kind of movement that came not from training gyms, but from experience. From moments where hesitation meant losing everything. The second strike came harder. Elias stepped in this time. And in one fluid motion, precise, controlled, undeniable, the strongest man hit the ground. Silence. It wasn't gradual. It was immediate. The laughter stopped as if someone had cut the sound itself. The crowd froze, trying to process what they had just seen. Elias didn't celebrate. He didn't raise his hands or look around for approval. He simply stepped back, breathing steadily, as if the outcome had never been in question. Because for him, it wasn't about proving anything to them. It was about proving something to himself. The rounds continued, but something had shifted. The same men who had laughed earlier now watched him differently. Carefully. Respectfully. One by one, challengers stepped forward. And one by one, they fell, not always dramatically, but decisively. Elias didn't overpower them. He outmatched them. Every move he made carried purpose. Every action was efficient, controlled, deliberate. It wasn't about strength alone. It was about understanding movement, timing, intention. It was about staying calm when everything around you demanded chaos. By the time the final round ended, the result was clear. The coordinator approached him, eyes narrowed in quiet assessment. There were no smiles, no unnecessary words. Just a nod that carried weight. But before anything could be said, a figure appeared at the edge of the training ground. The CEO herself. She had been watching. Dressed sharply, standing with quiet authority, she didn't look impressed easily. Her gaze moved across the remaining candidates before settling on Elias. There was no doubt in her expression. Only curiosity. Elias met her eyes for a brief moment, then looked away. He wasn't there to impress her. He was there to earn the job. Hours later, as the sun began to dip slightly, casting softer light across the city, Elias stepped out of the facility with something he hadn't carried in a long time. Hope. The job was his. But more than that, something inside him had shifted. The weight he had been carrying, the quiet doubt, the feeling of being overlooked, underestimated, had begun to lift. When he reached home, the door swung open before he could knock. Mira ran straight into him, wrapping her arms around his waist with a force that almost knocked the air out of him. He laughed, lifting her easily, her small hands gripping his shoulders. He didn't need to say anything. She already knew. That night, as she fell asleep with a smile still on her face, Elias sat quietly by the window, looking out at the city lights beginning to flicker on. For the first time in a long while, the future didn't feel uncertain. It felt possible. Days turned into weeks. The job was demanding, requiring focus, discipline, constant awareness. But Elias adapted quickly. His presence became steady, reliable. The kind that didn't draw attention, but commanded trust. The CEO noticed. Not just his skills, but his consistency. His ability to remain calm under pressure. His quiet strength. And slowly, without announcement or recognition, Elias became something more than just a bodyguard. He became indispensable. But life doesn't change all at once. There were still challenges. Long hours. Missed school events. Moments where guilt crept in quietly, reminding him of everything he was trying to balance. Yet every time he doubted himself, he remembered that day. The laughter. The silence that followed. And the truth it revealed. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the quiet decision to keep going when everything around you tells you to stop. As the months passed, Elias built something stronger than a career. He built stability. He built a future. And most importantly, he showed his daughter something she would carry for the rest of her life, that no matter how the world sees you, your worth is not defined by their expectations. It's defined by what you choose to do next. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and let us know in the comments how it made you feel. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. And before we end, Here's a special request. Comment, strength is quiet, if you believe true power doesn't need to shout. Because somewhere out there, someone is standing in the middle of laughter, being underestimated, overlooked, doubted. And just like Elias, they're about to prove everyone wrong.